she was described as a waitress. She was in fact actually a law student. She was doing a bit of bar work to make a bit of money, and she came to live with him in Hollywood. And it was they were kind of, it's not a terribly passionate relationship. I mean, it just sort of seemed like she was his date to be seen with and out and about. He secured her a work permit, and that was actually quite hilarious because he was talking about I got Selena a work permit so she could stay in this country, as if like he'd just got her out on the last helicopter out of Saigon.
After production ended on The Peacemaker, George arrived back in LA with Celine in tow. Now a fully fledged pin-up, he was playing a lead role in the gossip pages, and despite Batman being a critical flop, George Clooney was becoming a commercial success.
If we were to judge celebrities by box office alone, George would be at the bottom of the list. I mean, he's made some real stinkers. He's made 15 failed TV pilots. He's made a lot of bad choices when you think about it. But the fact is, that George just kind of kills you with his honesty and his openness and his charm.
Strangely enough, Batman and Robin made an awful lot of money, and that's the momentum of that franchise rather than that film. That film got terrible reviews, but people still wanted to believe that Batman would be okay. The reviewers must have been wrong. So, despite it being critically panned, commercially that was actually quite a big success. And that in some ways sums up Clooney's career, because his critical successes make no money, but the films which are bad, like The Peacemaker, do actually break even.
It's clear he's done some things that, looking back now, perhaps he wishes he hadn't, or makes him cringe a little bit. And one of those, in particular, was getting dressed up in his Batman costume. And he jokes about his rubber nipples that made him look, he thinks, rather foolish. Personally, I thought he was quite good as Batman. But I think it's safe to say we're not ever going to see George Clooney in a Batman follow-up again.
Even though George says, I killed the franchise as far as Batman was concerned, it was actually singularly responsible for his international success. I mean, when he arrived in the UK, for example, Clooney Mania really took off for the first time. They hired out the entire Battersea power station, and they had spotlights and the Batmobile, and all the villains were there. And it was basically Clooney's homecoming. This was a party all about Clooney.
Since the golden days of working on ER, George had played the part of the tabloid's favourite friend, happily giving interviews and posing for a picture.
I mean, the most pictures we get of George Clooney, bizarrely enough, is on the back of his beloved Harley Davidson. I mean, he's a mad biker, and he's pretty easy around LA. He pulls up for his coffees and gets snapped, and yeah, he is a lot easier with the boys today than what I think he used to be.
So I just pulled up next to him. We were both at a red light, and I rolled down my driver's side window, and I took a couple of pictures with my little short camera. And he looked over and he goes, "Whoa!" He got startled, and he goes, "Oh!" And then he waved, but he saw the camera and he got startled. He wasn't sure what it was. And then he waved, and I waved, and I said, "Thanks, George." And he goes, "Thanks." And then he drove down about a block and parked, and he was meeting 3 other motorcycle buddies there. And I pulled over, and I got in my car, and he knew I was there, and he just waved, and I photographed him. I kept my distance, and he was very kind, actually.
But George was also becoming the increasing focus of the long lens, and the more he seemed caught unaware, the more he began to feel that the paparazzi were overstepping the mark.
At one point he realised that, hello, I give an interview to Entertainment Tonight every single week, and yet the same channel, the same company, sends paparazzi photographers to my house to try and catch me out, and they make money again from that. By giving interviews to E.T., I'm actually financing them terrorising me. This has got to stop. So he did something that was quite interesting and quite brave. He actually went to the producers of Hard Copy and Inside Edition and said, stop taking pictures of me. My career doesn't need you, but I think you need me on Entertainment Tonight. I'm going to stop giving interviews unless you stop harassing me. Quite amazingly, George got a letter from the producer of Hard Copy that said, we promise we will never feature you on this programme again. Please continue to speak to Entertainment Tonight.